Hello Booktubians, today I'm going to be discussing why I love Stormlight Archive. This is going to be a spoiler overview, so if you haven't read it or haven't finished reading it, including Wind and Truth, I would probably not watch this video. But without further ado, this is why I love Stormlight Archive. First thing off, the world. Roshar is genuinely one of the coolest, most unique worlds I have seen. It almost feels like sci-fi. I mean, especially when you find out about the lore behind it. It is with the latest book in the franchise, Wind and Truth. You get so much more history and rich lore in the past. It almost this mythological aspect of with all the heralds and the shards, seeing them all just in this rain-soaked tent discussing the fate of the world. It's some of my favorite things in fantasy is humanizing mythical concepts like that, and that book did it well. In the first book, you're presented with this super strange world where a storm blows over every once in a while, and you're given a lot of detail in the sort of social hierarchy and the structure of the light eyes and the dark eyes. And that's when you find out that's the only, country, them and like a few others, like that's only like a collection of countries. You're like, oh wow. And then there's the Shin, then there's the Azish, I mean, it's one of those worlds where you look at from like a distance and you're like, oh, he's doing all this crazy multi-universe, planetary expanding thing. But then you realize, like, no, each of these like countries in this and cultures and religions and historical moments in this world are so well defined. In fact, they're probably more well defined than other series that all just take place on that one continent. And I think it's I myself write. And it is something that I struggle with. It is a lot to keep track of. It sounds like it's easy to just kind of make something up, but then you realize that if you're trying to stay grounded and trying to stay realistic within the own ground rules you have made, which he is a king of, it is hard because every decision you make has a rippling effect. And the fact that you can so deeply venture into this series, starting from book one, which is like almost a masterclass of balancing character work with Kaladin's backstories and his current day struggle, and world building with seeing the world through Shallan's investigations, through Yasna's teachings, and also seeing the wartime struggle and the consequences of Set's son Balana, War White the Day, blah blah blah. Seeing the consequences of that 7 years after, with Dalinar and Adelin's chapters. I mean, it is like a masterclass of balancing point of views, world building, character work, character analysis, and action. I mean, it is. I think even after Wind and Truth, I have to be real. Like, it is my favorite book in the franchise, but does not mean the rest of the 4 books are bad by any by any rating. And so I would say that the world. I don't really pay that much attention to the world a lot of the time unless it's this good. Wheel of Time is another example of a world that is that good. And this world is just so lush and different. And that's the big thing I would say that goes for the Stormlight Archive. It's a world where a storm blows through every few weeks and just wrecks everything. So the architecture is slanted on one side to allow for that to happen. There's is so much detail given to the kinds of flora and fauna you see, from crab things to giant crab monsters to plateaus of compacted creme. And it's like, then you get to the Shinlands, Shinlands. I don't know why I call it Shinlands. Shinovar, and it's like lush. It's mushy ground. It's the reaction of Kaladin as he's walking through, seeing this weird climate. I mean, it's other authors obviously do this. It's not like this is unique to this. But I think the fact that he can pull it off with such competency, and then also have it be completely alien as it is, right? It's not medieval Europe. It's not medieval Asia. It's like, you can't even say it's like. What if Mongolia was, on this crab planet? Because even in there's so many differences with how they describe their culture, how they describe their past and their present, and what they want to do as people in the future. There is a lot of depth that and good, because it's 1,000-page each. Like, each book is 1,000 pages, so naturally, but it just captivates you. And I would say that that really, really sets it apart for me, at least. And I would also say the characters and the magic system. A lot of his magic systems tend to be, what if I took this thing that exists in like anime or video games or some other story I read and try to present it in a scientifically, magically grounded thing. So like, that sounds stupid, but what I mean is, why is Vin able to carry a massive sword in Mistborn that is like the size of Guts' sword? Well, he has a reason for that in the magic system. Why are these armored knights using swords that are shaped so strangely? Again, he has a reason for that. And they're not contrived reasons where it's just like, because I said so. It's like, it all fits. And it leads to this weird satisfaction of fantastical tropes that I never needed to be justified. I never needed to have it justified to me why, although it is even in Berserk, but I was going to bring up Berserk of why Guts has this stupidly large slab of metal that he's actually good with. It is justified in that as well, but it's justified here, and it's even bigger, or it cuts through metal, or it cuts through anything, and your soul included. And it gives you justifications why these caped crusaders are jumping off of buildings, if you're talking about Mistborn. It gives you justification as to why people, this strange zombie apocalyptic city in Elantris, going all over the place, because this is not a thing unique to Stormlight, but I think Stormlight does it in a way that is the most epic. It is a massive series. It is his magnum opus, and he does it consistently enough to where I'm like, how do you even, like, I would expect there to be more plot holes. I would expect there to be stuff. And in fact, I like the characters enough to where I'm ready to forgive those small, but then there are basically none. And I'm sure there are a few that some people have noticed that I haven't heard about, but I mean, you're still going to come back, right? I mean, I am, at least. I don't know about you. But, and that leads me to the characters. The characters are, they're so, like, you have a surgeon turned soldier turned slave. You have a, war veteran, monstrous atrocity machine, warlord, turning into a, redeemed prophet of God. It's like, you get the son of that man who's just a brilliant sword master, and also he loves clothes. I don't know. I mean, you can do this with any character, right? But I think with Stormlight, you have like kind of like the most fun with it. I feel, with other series will have your classic D&D backgrounds paired with their profession or class. This one does too, but I feel like he's having more fun with it. It's he is really mixing and matching, but then stringing those narrative bonds together, stringing them together to make it make sense. Why is Adeline such a princess when it comes to his clothes and his coats and his suits and his swords? But then you see that man tear through enemies like an animal. Right? I mean, and I don't know, he makes it convincing for me. I like it. I like that kind of stark contrast of who they are as people and what they like versus, and that's something that you don't often see, I will say, is what they do in their free time, right? And I think he kind of just adds that little extra flair. And on top of that, he puts such a narrative gut punch for everything. Through his flashbacks dedicated to a character or two every book, tie that in with like the thematic, mirroring of the oath or the order that the book is going to represent, with Way of Kings being Windrunner. Jeez, I almost forgot. Big fan. Windrunner with the Words of Radiance being Lightweaver, with Oathbringer being Bondsmith. And it's like, I don't know, when you pair together the theme to the character, to the flashbacks that the book is about, to all with the book, it is just, it's like, you may not like his prose, you might not like his, over-the-top world building that has become what it has become, but you have to give it to the guy. He has put thought into bridging all of the things that make fantasy as a genre click. character work, world building, plot, magic systems, and history, lore, religion, just backgrounds, all of these things, all these zing words you'll see in D&D, all the zing words you'll see in anything, he actually makes it click and justify all within this 5-book, soon to be 10, actually it's not really soon, is it? But, in this 10-book, eventual 10-book franchise. So that is why I love Stormlight Archive, and if you have not read it, I don't know why you're watching, but I hope this did convince you to read it. And if you have read it, let me know what you think, especially with the release of Wind and Truth and the sort of next series timeline laid out. Are you still as invested in the series as you were with Way of Kings and onward, or are you not so much? But let me know down in the comments. Thank you for watching, and happy reading as always.